Jenny, are you ready? Call the meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Here.
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 Present.
Item number 2, I would take a motion for approval of the agenda.
I make a motion to approve the agenda for tonight.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item number 4, approval of Planning and Zoning Commission meeting minutes for November 18th, 2024. Looking for a motion.
Make a motion to approve as written.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item number 5, Titan Storage Site Development. Developer report, please.
Good evening, I'm Andrew Neck from Silver Line Advantage, 4121 Northwest Riverdale Drive in Riverdale. This is the same location we discussed in the past about some setbacks. This time we would like to discuss the full site plan, and we have the 50-foot setbacks on the two sides. So this property is 75 East Vista Lake Avenue, 2.51 acres. The open space is 15%, and with the additional setbacks, our site has 46.3% open space. We're proposing 4 buildings on the site, for a total of 30,500 square feet buildings. There is a hydrant on the site for the water, for fire service. The buildings do not have water, so there can be no space within the building. The detention is on the north side of the property, and detention will also carry the building 15 Street on that site. There was a few comments from our December 12th submittal that 5 comments on that. If you agree with those comments that were on that site plan. I'll keep it short of that and answer any questions you might have. So as Doug alluded to in our meeting, the type C buffers as written on the east and south edge of the property. On the northeast and south side, they have plantings or opaque fences that meet the criteria for the buffer. As part of this approval, they are asking for you to allow an encroachment of some pavement as well as the detention basin into the north buffer. So that is the area that is buffering against the future land use, not established lots. All 3 buffer areas appear to meet the criteria for the type C buffer. They're just asking for that encroachment. As Doug mentioned, there are 5 outstanding comments. We don't view any of those as substantial. They're minor cleanup type stuff. And so we're perfectly content with your recommendation being subject to addressing of those comments. This is not a discussion item. This is something we're looking for the commission's recommendation on. So your recommendation would be to either approve the site plan, or that council approve the site plan, and then that would be contingent on your acceptance of the request of waiver of the portion of the buffer requirements, and subject to addressing all those comments. Staff feels that this is a very good and adequate site plan that meets the criteria and the intent of the zoning code.
Quick question.
Yes.
I'm a little confused what the land use is proposed to be to the north. In the write-up, I was getting out of it that it was perhaps residential, but our land use map shows commercial, at least the one that we looked at last month.
Let me pull that up.
And I was actually, I didn't go to our website. I went to what we were discussing at last month's meeting. So the land use plan dated 11/14. Which may or may not have been approved by. And I'm sorry, I misspoke. It shows mixed use to the north of this property on that 1114. This property shows commercial, but to the north, mixed use.
You're correct. We were looking a little bit too far to the east.
Okay.
So that actually works in favor.
No, I concur,
So
yeah.
That's a type B buffer, a 30-foot type B buffer.
And, yeah, I mean, the thought of having a detention pond encroaching into an easement up against residential, I'm not saying that I had strong feelings one way or the other, but I wanted to have some discussion about that. But I know I'm a lot less concerned with it up against mixed use.
Yep, so I guess for clarification of the commission, clarification of the developer, I was looking too far east on future land use plan, we were looking at type C buffer. This property to the north joins a future commercial use, which would look at the restriction in the width of that buffer. So that is something that is, acknowledged, and we can get modified. The benefit is that we've got a little bit of time, because with the second meeting in December being canceled for the council, that would be that January.
Okay.
So correct me if I'm wrong, that detention basin still approaches within 30 feet of the property.
Yes, but we are meeting the requirement on that by a wood fence, so 100% opaque wood fence. One of the ways that we have that buffer, we are doing that along the areas, since we are limited on space.
Yep.
Keep the drainage from east to west across the property.
And that makes a modification then to the request that they're making would just be for the detention to encroach into the buffer area. The paved area would no longer encroach into
Okay.
the buffer.
Well, I appreciate the effort that's gone into this and redoing it. And I think, from my perspective, addressed the concerns I had earlier. I don't have a problem with that detention being in the buffer in the location it is. That's a natural drainage path anyhow. And you've handled it in a way that looks very good. I think aesthetically very pleasing. And again, the finishes that are put into this are upgrade finishes, and I realize that the effort that it took to redo this totally from what it was. So I just would say thank you for doing that. And it looks good from my perspective.
Remind me again, there is residential right across the street, correct?
To the south,
And are there houses there currently?
the east, to the south, there might be one, but there are several open lots south of this place. That would be potentially either in the eastern portion of this lot or just off to the south.
It's two right here.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Here's one.
Remind me what the buffer is on the front side of this? It's a fence, right? An iron fence?
We've got a fence across the front, with a lot of landscaping, landscaping.
And the buffer ordinance in Polk City require that buffer to be there year round, so they made an adjustment to include everything fully in.
And you're, and this is still metal building with some stone, is that correct?
There is a mix of stone, that's facing all the sealed metal fastener siding. signage is being limited to building one, which is the very western building, which is across from the school, not part of the residential.
This is right here.
And this specifically, two questions, Deanna, two residential lots directly south are occupied, but the next three are.
Okay. And when you originally, did they have to do the 250 buffer where you reach out to the, okay,
No, because this was zoned prior to this development.
okay. So we don't know what the neighbors in that area think about a storage facility going up across the street, I'm assuming.
Not the single family neighbors, we have not talked to the neighbor directly to the west, which is the daycare. We have talked with them and they're in favor of this. The one thing they were concerned about was the fence and any kickballs or anything over that, so we're going to provide access for them to retrieve any.
Denny, we have not received any written comment against this.
But there hasn't been any outreach. I mean, no offense, but if I wasn't on planning and zoning, I wouldn't know necessarily what's coming for it, so.
That's because we're bringing site plan, I guess, right? For the city doesn't, if it's rezoned, then notifications given to the neighbor, but any normal site plan, neighbors are not notified of the site.
And in this case, those lots were sold and developed with the knowledge that that was either, I mean, that was easily available, I guess I would say, that it was commercial across the street.
Correct, yes, that M1 zoning has existed before these lots were platted. And then this lot in particular was created in 2021 through 2022 as part of the Big Creek Commons platform.
And I would say that the daycare architecture is far cry different than a storage unit across the street from my home.
And if you look at the acceptable uses
I
for
understand
that zoning, I think when you look at trips per day, lighting nuisance, you know, what this, the amount of buffer that's actually covering really everything but the driveway going into the front of the property. There could be a lot, I mean, if it's going to be developed as commercial, this is a pretty low intense use, in my opinion.
How tall is the front building with the sign on it?
It's 12 foot on that, right?
And it's a 6-foot fence?
The building is not fenced. Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, so you're still having this red roof sticking above with a Titan.
Yeah, so it could be
Looking
12
straight
feet
at
all
you.
the way across there and would comply,
Yes. Right.
yeah.
12 to the eve, right, and the peak?
12 foot sidewalls and then
Is on top of it, right?
Looks like it drops as it goes north, down to 8 foot,
yes, yeah.
8'3". That's good steps,
Building one and then the other buildings are similar size.
yeah.
Is there any public comment? Further commission conversations, comments, questions?
I'd be happy to make a motion, but I just have a quick question for Travis. Is that north buffer, is that 40 feet then? Because I will need to reference that in the motion.
You could reference specifically to the buffer requirements and then staff.
Okay.
Just make it clear that we're buffering against commercial.
Or mixed use anyway. Yeah, mixed use, okay. Okay, I'd like to make a motion that we recommend to council approval of the Titan Storage site plan subject, that site plan that has comments dated December 13th, 2024 from staff. And the recommendation is subject to all comments and recommendations being completed that are referenced in that document by staff. And including recommendation number 1, which is planning and zoning, requesting a waiver to the encroachments into the required buffer on the north side of the property up against mixed use for the use of a detention facility, water detention facility.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Yes.
Present. Yes.
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 No. Item number 6, discuss high-density parking requirements.
Staff has been involved in the conversations and in those conversations, they brought some concerns about our current residential parking requirements. They provided a list of some of the surrounding communities, and further provided a few additional ones comparing what our requirements are compared to the others. One key note, comparing ours to the others, we require garages explicitly in our code, and our garage spaces do not. Which a lot of the others do. There are a couple of variations. Travis, so additional number. Those requirements. Just to see first. But developers know that we would bring it to the commission. A lot of changes.
Just some history on parking requirements. My understanding is parking requirements were redone from the subdivision and zoning regulations were overhauled, and I think it was 2010, if memory serves. And essentially at that time, the commission, there was a lot of discussion about townhomes, apartments, parking complexes, all that kind of stuff, and there were multiple specific developments that were referenced as causing concern because there were a number of different concerns, but most of it involved higher density residential housing not having the parking required to serve the buildings that were there, and then them inundating the adjacent neighborhoods with them. I think from our perspective, I think our recommendation would be is if comfortable with the change of the zoning ordinance or to these parking requirements, we would leave the townhomes untouched and then basically separate the apartments out from there. Requirement of a 2-car garage with 2 visitor stalls in front of that garage for anything larger than 3 bedroom, like the way that the zoning code is currently written is adequate and acceptable, and I think right in line with what that commission wanted, what the city continues to want as far as townhomes. But any change, I think we would basically add another 2 lines to the parking table that specifically mentions apartments, whereas right now they are referenced as townhomes and apartments.
And remind me again, this is for what area?
The new development.
Curve.
Just a little history at the time that those were updated. First of all, the rewrite there was public outcry for needing to have some changes made. And that outcry didn't come to us, it came to elected officials, which brought it to us. But the primary areas of concern did fall under the townhome zoning. But also the facility or the apartments that are currently located in the Sandpiper neighborhood, I guess I would call it. There also was feedback brought to us through our elected officials regarding the frustration with the lack of garage spaces at that location. So certainly for and this, this is dated information. If you say 2010, I'm not going to argue with the timing on that. I know it's been a while ago. But at least at that point in time, there was a desire to have future apartments have garages as a requirement. As far as, the number of spaces per unit, that's certainly, I think, I'd love to, have ours be similar to what others folks are. Also, I would like those garages, buildings, whether they're for apartments or for townhomes, to have architectural standards that comply to them. And that is something that we talked about changing our ordinance for. At the same time, the parking ordinance was changed. So if you're saying that's 2010, that keeps not happening.
And I think, so I would say that staff is of the opinion that now would be a good time to make that change, if we're going to make that change. And I also think that, by and large, what we're recommending is not that you guys completely abandon garages, because I don't think that's in the character of this community. I don't think that's in line with the commission, and I highly doubt, at least with my experience, that that's going to be in line with the opinion of the council. I think it's just, we wanted to have this discussion to talk about, because right now, the way your code is written, you've got surface parking requirements and you've got garage parking requirements, and they don't overlap. There's no overlap, there's no counting one way or the other. And as I was working through these calculations, it looks to me like the surface parking is right in line with a lot of other communities, and you guys might be on the wrong. And then it's just that it's the stack that kind of tips you guys a little bit over the scale of what other communities are seeing.
And guess we're trying to see who's here and not here, but I mean, there's more than me that would like to see more density in some of our development opportunities that we have here, so that we could offer housing to people in all stages of their life and have them be able to come here and move around amongst our community through all of the stages of our life. And that's a key piece that I think we're missing. And so if that's what's keeping us out of the market, I think we really need to update that.
And I think that's something worth noting as well. Allure is the one that has asked us to look at this, but I think we need to take a holistic approach, because what we were just talking about with the mixed use to the north of Titan Storage. I mean, if you look at the future land use plan, you are pushing into areas where high density residential is going to become more common. You're going to have these commercial centers with fringing higher density living spaces. And so I think it's a good practice to kind of look at this from a holistic perspective of that this one's driving the question, but I don't think we want it to drive the answer.
Yeah.
So I think that's something that we'd like the commission's feedback on, of what you might think are reasonable. And I think that's one of the reasons that I wanted you to have those scenarios, because I looked at, so Allure, their concept had a 330 unit mixture of 1 bedroom and studio. That was when we were rezoning. That hasn't been reviewed. That could change a little bit. So those numbers aren't firm. But then I wanted you to have an idea of what does a 100 unit complex of that same mixture look like? What does a 50 unit complex? So you can see that like the amount of parking that you guys require You know, you get a lot closer as you get to these smaller units, but by percentage, you're about the same. It gets really different, because if you look, I mean, 726 versus the next closest is 619, that looks really disproportionate, but I think it's misrepresentative of what you're likely to see in a more common apartment complex. I mean, this is a really big apartment complex that we're talking about with the look.
So are you looking for anything specific from us?
I think we're looking for some feedback to come back at a future meeting with. Like us to put a few examples together for you. You know, project with so many units, we can show you what the requirement would be, in each.
Yeah, I guess my feedback is I don't want Polk City to be uncompetitive with other Des Moines metro communities when it comes to housing of this nature. However, you know, I would have a difficult time not having at least one garage stall per unit on that property. What we got into with some of our parking complaints, in a lot of cases, was people using their garage that they do have as a storage unit and moving all of their cars onto the street. And so, you know, that's difficult to write a zoning ordinance for, but I can see that that could be a same possibility for also higher density projects as well. So we need to have some sort of, you know, extra space to make sure that we have, you know, have that capability to store the cars for the residents and for their visitors on their property without getting onto the street.
I think there's two things that we're not comparative on, and maybe you
Yeah.
which one you like more or you don't like more. The first one is that a garage is required. If you look at the other communities, no other communities require a garage for each bedroom, or for each unit, sorry. The second item is that the garage also does not count as a parking stall. And as you can see, the spreadsheet's kind of broken up, so you have to go to the second page, but most of the other communities, they do count a garage as a stall.
And if we did count it, that would put us in line pretty much the way it looks here, wouldn't it? Per
The
square
only-
foot?
Yeah, the only
Feet.
item would be the first one we talked
If you required it, but counted it as a space.
Yeah.
And I think too, something that's worth noting is you don't have to go full measure there either. I mean, Pleasant Hill, you can see 1.5 of each garage stall is counted towards their count. I think that would be a middle ground that would bring you more in line. It would still probably put you on the high end of the metro. I'd have to run those numbers, but I think that kind of gives you an idea of what it could be. So that would put you, if you went a half stall,
165.
it would put you at 561. So instead of being at the high end, that would put you below West Des Moines, Grimes,
Probably upper middle.
Norwalk,
Yeah.
yeah, probably upper middle at that point. The
Yeah.
other option is what Urbandale does, where if you include it in your rent, it counts, but you have to commit to that. I think the problem there is depending on, that could drive prices up, and that may be a game that Polk City doesn't want to play. Yeah, it would also, from a staff perspective, be extremely hard.
Yeah. I kind of like the half a space per unit. So again, there's no guaranteeing they're going to use it as a parking stall, but yet there's some credit given for it.
In our discussion with the developer, they didn't have any problem with putting the garages. public parking if it's not needed.
Right,
Yeah,
instead of concrete.
much
Yeah.
better that way.
Finding the happy medium.
Seems like a good compromise.
Yeah,
I do like the idea of having a garage.
Yeah,
Required. It's just a matter of how much we count of
I,
that.
I think there's gotta be some credit for it, but exactly how much it gets used for parking is gonna be pretty hard to get a handle on.
Right, right.
What I'm hearing from you is, the commission might be interested in changing the garage count as a parking space. Match what Pleasant Hill has as 0.5 space per unit.
Correct.
Okay,
Be on board with that.
Yep.
okay. And, Ron, can you repeat what you wanted us to look into with town architectural standards? Is that what you said?
Well, that's another thing that was talked about at the same group of meetings. But any large garage structure, so I think we had maybe talked about 3 or 4 garage stalls or more, should have an architectural standard to it. And as you look or drive through Grimes and look at the backside of the garages we look at every day driving on 141, you can see that they aren't a flat back of the structure with a flat roof. There's some variability to that. As you drive on 35 south from the West Mixmaster, you see a bunch of the backsides of a bunch of garages, and they're not unattractive. But when you look at the large garages we have in our community, you know, they look like boat storage or something. They, just have no variability to them at all, and I'd like to see that changed. But yes, also on the townhomes, we had talked about having some architectural standards for, I believe it was above 3 units, so something that offered variability in the facade of the facility so they wouldn't be flat across the front, is what was talked about at the time. Unfortunately, our architectural flag bearer for our commission is no longer here, so we're all gonna need to have a collective memory.
So I guess what would you be looking for in that? Are you just looking for it to match the character? Are you looking for specific material proportions?
I would like to see some variability in the roof line, for starters, and something to vary a long, straight facade.
Not this. Definitely not.
So have an occasional gable coming out on the roof structure, maybe where that gable is, kick out the wall 6 inches there. And then they can, maybe use some of the higher end architectural materials that they would have needed to put on anyway and focus that in those areas. I'm not talking about adding, any material structure. We have, some of our longer garage buildings that we have in our community have, meet our standard for, having stone or something that resembles stone on them. It's just that they're applied in a manner that make them, pretty pedestrian, I guess.
Some way to break up the linear look of it
Correct.
in some fashion. Roof line, offsets, yeah, I can,
Both roof in.
So, yeah, I'd be curious
Yeah.
what Grimes and West Des Moines and some of those other communities, I've never wanted Polk City to be on the bleeding edge of some of these. And so the thought of looking at what other communities do and trying to glean information from that and see what works for us is always I think a good way to go.
Work to bring that back to you, maybe in the first couple of meetings of the new year.
But yeah, if we're gonna update the parking for the apartments, I think this would be a good time to update what a garage looks like, not only for apartments, but also for townhomes, just anything over a certain size of a structure.
Number two, one of our complexes, we had piggyback parking.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, the townhomes on Broadway, they have double deep.
They called it piggyback parking.
So
They
they
were
were
deep.
required to have 2 parking stalls and
And
they
a deep,
put them end to end and then put a parking space in front of them is how they counted that out.
was that by the Lutheran church? Yeah,
Yes,
by the Lutheran church, those.
that was like the week after we did the new parking ordinance. So they were in compliance with it. We weren't happy with it, though. But they were in compliance with the words of the ordinance.
Item number 7. Confirm chairperson for 2025 and 2026. Do you want to do both of them together or how do you separate? Okay, okay. Don't need to. Okay. And then on the next vice chair, do we go with the newest person or is that, what's the process? Sorry.
It's up to you.
Oh,
The way the code is written is you can select anyone you want. And it's been requested that I provide a couple years ago, I provide what the rotation has been.
yeah, that's right.
Who would quote unquote next. So Amber is technically next
Perfect.
in that
Okay.
rotation, but it doesn't have to be her, that's.
But she hasn't served in either of these roles, so that would make sense. Okay. Not to put you in the hot spot. I'm sorry, Alex.
Generally, in the past, you've not gone with the newest member.
Okay, the newest to be,
Is this a 2-year?
it is a 2-year,
This
correct?
is-
It is, you guys did change it, it is a 2-year.
Oh,
Okay,
when did we
well, I
change?
make the motion
we
for
did
Justin
that
before
2
we get
years
very
ago.
far. To be our chairperson for 2025 and 2026.
I'll second that one.
Do we have to do roll call? Can we? Okay. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that same sign? Awesome. Okay, item number 6, confirm vice chair, and this is where we can say Amber. Okay, well, I will nominate Amber for the 2025 and 2026 vice chair position.
I'll second that motion.
Does anyone ask her? I assume she will say yes.
This is what happens when you don't come to the
That's
meeting.
true.
I'm just saying.
That's a lesson to be learned.
Yeah, that's right.
All right.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. I'm assuming thank you.
Okay.
We love Amber. Okay. Reports and particulars. Council liaison.
Am I up first?
You are up first.
Well, good evening, everybody. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Jeff Savage. I'm a Des Moines Metro native who's lived in our town for 10 years. Was elected last year, so this is my first full year on the city council. And I'm fortunate enough to be your liaison going into 25. Unfortunately, Mandy had a conflict tonight, so she threw me in. So I'm happy to be here. This is something, being on the council, that I've been looking forward to because honestly, this part of the process really intrigues me, and I think it's going to help me be a little bit more effective in my role. So I'm looking forward to working with you guys. Just some updates, and again, I'll try to live up to, it's not going to be possible to Mandy's standards, but I'll give you a few updates from our last meeting. We went ahead and transferred our water production assets to Central Iowa Waterworks. We also entered in an operating agreement with Central Iowa Waterworks, where they'll do some yearly reimbursements for us, part of us producing water for everybody else. We did approve some amendments to the comp plan last meeting. And another thing that was somewhat important to me personally was we finished a salary survey for staff, something that we're going to use as potentially a measurement as we move into working on our budget for fiscal year 26. Budget actually starts in 2 weeks, right?
Welcome.
Yeah,
Thank you, I appreciate it.
yeah.
Nice to have
Thanks
you.
for the update.
Appreciate those. Chelsea, ready?
The only update I have for you all tonight is the, city council recently, started observing President's Day as a city holiday. President's Day, this upcoming year falls on February 17th, which is the planning and zoning. Traditionally, we've just moved that to the Tuesday after. Does that work for the group if we meet Tuesday the 18th instead of the holiday on the 17th?
All good questions.
I don't have my phone.
Yeah, works for me.
We will plan to do that.
Yeah, I think it'll be better for me.
Just following up, January 20th is not observed that as a city holiday. We'll meet that night, but then in February, President's Day will move to the Tuesday after.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Excellent. All right. Let's see next. Do you have anything else for us? Staff?
I would just say I ran reports this morning. If you guys are curious, we do have right at 50 new homes this year in Polk
Oh,
City.
wow.
Wow.
Calendar year, but the estimated value on those is about 22.5 added to the city. So there's other ones as well, but that's just the use of it.
Any word on the retirement? That, okay.
No.
We extended that site plan approval in accordance with city code through March 27th of 2025. The way your code's written is if they do something permanent, that site plan would then be considered valid until it's completed. If there is not something permanent done by the time that site plan expires, you guys can see it again.
And define permanent.
So incorporation of a real asset into the project. So the easiest way for them to hit that would be create the detention basin, put the outlet structure in. That counts. Grading the basin doesn't count with the installation of the permanent storm sewer structure.
Got it.
Did they request that extension, or did we point out to them that it was expiring, or both?
Whoa.
Okay.
We didn't keep in contact with them, and we mentioned that it was going that direction, and so then they asked us to renew it. Because we're trying to make sure that if that thing, you know, if there's still interest there, I think that'd be a very valuable asset.
There's interest in your.
Yeah, huge.
Oh, yeah.
Commissioners, anyone have anything? All right, then I will adjourn the meeting. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
What is